Hey, this is Kenny from Typo and Silvertomb. You're watching Heavy New York.
Heavy, 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 heavy New York.
What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are at the one and only Lucky 13 Saloon in Brooklyn, and we're here with Kenny Hickey of Typo Negative, 7th Void, and of course Silvertomb. Thank you for your time today, man.
Hey, you know, my time is worthless. So don't worry about it.
There you go. But I really enjoyed the record Edge of Existence. It's a beautiful record. Do you just want to talk about it, like how the making of this record was, the recording, mixing, all that fun stuff?
Well, we recorded it in Pennsylvania at a buddy's house. He had like this compound out in Pennsylvania. Nice, like he had his house and then has a whole separate compound with a garage. I guess he worked on cars and all this stuff, and it's upstairs. Beautiful, with like 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. And we just set up right there, you know, like in the living space, man. I had my half stacks there. We had a half stacks right there in the living space, and Ali, our producer, had his stuff set up on the couch, right on the cocktail table. It was very, very, very nice and homey, you know, the whole feeling. And we stood up there for about 5 days. That was just to do basic tracks. It took about 5 days. And then from there, everything else, like vocals, guitar leads, guitar overdubs, we all did at actually my house in Staten Island. We were in Staten Island, and you know, I turned my wife's walk-in closet into an isolation booth in the basement, and ran a snake up through my laundry room and into my living room, and we sat in my living room. We did all that stuff. It took a while. You know, because we had to do it in segments, you know, like we did, as far as the vocals go, we did the vocals maybe in like 3 days.
Wow.
In my house. And then the leads, I ended up getting a lot of complaints from the people in my complex and stuff, you know. They wanted to give me a ticket and stuff, because we were going late some nights, you know, Joe sitting on my couch and screaming leads, you know. So that's how we did it, piecemeal after that. We did like all the basic tracks, we did all in 1 week, like you should do them. You should do guitars, you know, there's gotta be continuity to it when you're laying down guitars especially. The drums, Johnny actually did in Texas.
Oh, wow.
Separate. So he did them because he moved to Texas, you know, about a year ago. His wife's got him moving around. She's had him moving around for the last 10 years. You know, you can't be in a house for more than 6 months. This poor guy. At this point, he's like, just tell me where to park my car and I'll show up there. So he did his drums in Texas and sent the files to us, and so that's how the drums got done. And then we went through this. This is 2018, July 2018, and then into the fall of 2018 was when we did all the overdubs and stuff in my house. And then it was a whole mixing process. Wow. Which, of course, in this day and age, you know, you don't sit around in a studio like I did for most of my career, you know, and argue about the mix, you know, in real time right there. You do it over the, you know, texting, and, you know, making punch lists and emails. So that took another 3 months probably.
Wow.
You know, tweaking everything, getting everything right, getting the balances right. And then we did a show beginning of 2019 for the NAMM Festival for my guitar company, Schecter Guitars.
With Body Count.
That's correct. We opened up for Body Count, which was really cool.
Yep. That was awesome.
I met Ice-T years ago. He was actually on Roadrunner at one point.
Yep. Oh, I did not know he was on. Everybody was on Roadrunner.
He was on Roadrunner at one point. I'm going back. And I think we were in Amsterdam for like 3 days of interviews, me and Peter. And we were at the American Hotel, and I remember going down to the cafe. We'd go in that cafe to do interviews. The Roadrunner had us doing interviews in the cafe, and Ice-T was right behind us. And I remember the guy going, "Do you know who those guys are?" To Ice-T, and he goes, "You know who Typo is?" And Ice-T goes, "Yeah." Oh.
That's got to be the best or worst Typo impression.
It was really cool, you know, opening for Body Count. And at that particular point in time, we were mastering. So that had to get done. We got the mastering done. And then after that, throughout the rest of the... what the fuck is that?
Is that me? Siri interrupting you.
Siri's interrupting me. Bitch. So after that, we started looking for a deal, you know, once we got it mastered and stuff. I actually had Frank send a lot of it out.
Oh, awesome.
Hook us up. And I think sometime in like June or something like that. We ended up sealing a deal with Long Branch and putting it out with them.
That's awesome.
So.
Yeah, what I really found unique is being that Silvertomb has you and Johnny, but has Hank, who played with who played with you in Seventh Void, but also in Inhuman. You had Joe, who played with in Agnostic Front, and it seems like to be like a super group at this point. Was like
super Brooklyn group.
It doesn't get more New York of a super group than that. But like I was curious, was it like kind of combining like the sounds of Typo, Seventh Void, Inhuman, and all these projects into one, or did you guys try to do something that all of you have never done before?
I think that the band is evolving, and all those elements are going to be in there because they're naturally in us, I mean, Joe comes down and he brings this real edgy, more sawtooth like approach to his playing, You can hear the hardcore, wanting to bust out when he plays, So like we all bring elements of the stuff that's in us that we grew up playing and. I've been playing for years, for decades. I mean, you're never going to get the dirge out of me. I mean, it's in me. It's just in my fibers. Johnny too.
Yeah.
But I think that we've left enough open, the door open enough as far as the influences to really expand and bring it into something that's in of its own.
Yeah.
This is just the first step. Edge of existence, and a lot of the thing about Edge of Existence, a lot of the sounds of the songs, it's sort of like an exorcism of everything I've been through in the last 10 years, with losing Peter.
Yeah, I think Sleeping on Nails and Wine was dedicated to him in that regard.
Well, that's about him, It's actually about him. So I think I had a lot of demons to exercise and a lot of things to put to bed before I really move on into something completely different. This next record that we're working on right now is even further out.
Wow.
So I think the band is really going to hone in and find its own unique approach and sound.
Yeah. Well, what I found unique is that I felt like every song on this record played by its own rules in a way. Like I thought that, Eulogy Requiem was very different from a song like Not Your Savior, different from a song like Waiting. So I think it's fair to say there was like no limitations. There was not like really a...
That's, a precedent I wanted to set. That's what I want to go for. Because I have a lot of different influences in my life, I mean, I grew up at a time and an age in the early 70s when the greatest music in the world was happening, Coming out of the Beatlemania, their existence, into Elton John and Kiss, Black Sabbath, Zeppelin. I love the blues. There's blues on this record. I mean, Insomnia, the chorus for Insomnia is blues.
Yeah.
It's a blues riff. So I'm going to bring all these elements in, and I don't want us to be limited to just playing like straight up, shit sandwich metal, I want the doors as open as wide as we can get them.
Yeah, and I think you definitely set that precedent with this record. I was asking myself, like, what at the end when I finished the song Waiting, the last track, like, what are they going to come up with next? Because I feel like there was so much incorporated in there.
That's a rock and roll song, Waiting. 15 minutes took me to write it.
Really?
Yeah, it took me friggin' weeks, months to write, like, a lot of the songs. And I guess a lot of frustration sometimes in the studio, screwing around with arrangements and, key changes and all this stuff. And like at 3 o'clock in the morning, I guess I had a little too many beers and I was like, fuck this. And grabbed my glue stick. Bam, song came out,
Sometimes pain is the best paintbrush.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what I was curious about is because being that, like, everybody who was involved in Silvertomb, you, Johnny, and I know Hank, too, was involved in Seventh Void. Yeah. Were you trying to maybe, like, because, the last track, Heaven...
Heaven is Gone?
Yeah, Heaven is Gone, the last Seventh Void record.
The only Seventh Void record,
was like, I thought that there was maybe a little similarities, maybe it's just your voice tying those two together, but did you try to like maybe distance yourself from Seventh Void? Like how were you trying to make Silvertomb and Seventh Void like different from each other?
Oh, well, it's way more progressive, Silvertomb, and there's way more elements in it of different genres, sounds, obviously. songs like Insomnia and especially Love You Without No Lies. Now, Love You Without No Lies is probably the most similar song to Seventh Void in style, because it was written for Seventh. We started out with, that was the first song that was written.
I think it was like the same chord progression or something as Last Walk in the Line or something like that.
No, it's not the same chord. I don't think it's the same chord progression, but it's in the same,
vibe.
Yeah, the same vibe, So, I mean, it was such a good song, and I was going to toss it, So it started from there, and it expanded out. As the album progressed and songs were written, it got further and further away from what we were doing with Seventh Void. And it was a semi-conscious effort. It's not a conscious effort. Like, I want to sound different from what I did in the past. It's just more like I want to explore different areas. We want to explore different areas. Bring different elements in.
Yeah, and you definitely succeeded in that regard. What I was curious is, you being a vocalist and a songwriter, do you sometimes have a lyrical concept that could help actually influence the sound of the music itself?
That's a good question. A lot of people ask me that. Usually what happens is, actually always what happens is, I have a riff in my head, or an attitude or a feeling, and I'll bring that out through playing guitar, or now with this band, which is great, I have multiple instruments to write from. I always wrote from guitar. I wrote from acoustic, or I wrote from my electric. Now I can write from piano. I can write from synth. I can write from strings. Really expands, the possibilities. But never do I come up with a set of lyrics and then, come up with the music to match it. It's a very good idea, and it's another approach. And the more different angles you can come in from, the more different, things are going to come out,
Yeah. Well, I heard that sometimes musicians hesitate on doing that because nothing could be more heartbreaking than having like the best set of lyrics and then seeing how they go like one syllable over the actual arrangement or something like that.
Yeah, you got to cram them in. But, it also works the other way around. You can have great music and like lousy lyrics. I mean, how many bands do that?
Too many to even count.
Yeah.
Too many
to me, they're both equally as important. You gotta have lyrics with depth. There's got to be something in them. I can't take bad lyrics.
Yeah, of course. One thing I was always curious about is being such a prolific musician, going from Typo Negative to Seventh Void to Silvertomb. Is it like a different mind frame, or is there maybe like a usual method behind the madness that applies to every project you've been in?
As far as what? As far as writing? Or?
Writing, performing, all the above.
I think it's just a continual growth. That's how I look at it, From Typo, when you think about this, right? When Seventh Void formed, it was sort of a counter balance to Typo, because Typo is always a very complex, progressive, 12-minute long song, band, all these different tones and all these different sounds. So what I was trying to do, what we were trying to do with Seventh Void, was have something really simple and bare bones and stripped down, a rock and roll band, a heavy rock band. So that's why, Seventh Void really came about. Just wanted to play like simple songs that were 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
I always told Peter, you're brilliant, but you can't write a simple song. That's how I Don't Want to Be Me got written.
Really?
Yeah. He wrote that because I broke his balls.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, you can't write a simple freaking 4-minute song.
Now I see where the meaning. Sorry, there's fruit flies here.
I got it.
Well,
eat them.
All right.
Eat them. Ah, you pussy.
I was wondering where the meaning of "I Don't Want to Be Me" came out, and now it seems like that was the.
So like that's why we did that. We did Seventh Void on the side. It was I wanted to do a straight rock band, and then obviously we lost Peter, lost Typo, and then into creating Silvertomb stuff, and now I missed all that. I missed the walking string sections and horn sections, and the piano parts, and changing keys, and that's another reason why this band has become more complicated, more progressive, because I miss all that now.
Yeah.
So there is an amount of mixing that raw rock simplicity with all that complexity.
Of course. You know what's funny is, well, what I've always thought was so great about typo, like long songs drive me crazy sometimes, like especially if it's like, you know,
not if they're great and
Yeah.
everything changes.
Yeah.
You know, they go to different places.
Of course, and I think you guys really mastered the art of keeping a long song engaging. Like, you know, like I feel like Christian Woman's a good example where like
It's the
know-
best.
Yeah.
That's the Peter. He always said it. That was his greatest masterpiece.
Really?
Christian Woman. Yeah. And when you think about Christian Woman, think about every movement. Every movement's great. Every movement's catchy. Jesus Christ looks like everything right to the end. We made a single out of that, and it was like 14 minutes long. And you could have taken any part of the song and made a single.
Of course, and what I find unique is that, like, you know, there's parts that repeat, like it pieces the whole song together,
Yeah.
but then you have that random acoustic part that
Yeah.
fits so perfectly and, like, kind of brings you back down
Yeah.
to earth and then shocks you 1 minute. And I think that's what made Typo Negative so significant.
Peter was great at that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I was always curious about is for you as a writer, does inspiration sometimes come out of nowhere, or do you have to put yourself in a certain mode or a certain atmosphere in order to get inspired to write?
I think that I have to snap into a mode. Like now I'm in writing mode again because now, you know, I mean, we're going to be supporting Exit of Existence, of course, but everything's got to be prepared for the next record. So once I start writing, what I'll do is if I get an idea, you know, in the morning I'm good. Like I have I'm fruitful in the morning. And I'll also in the evening when I get a little whacked on a couple of beers, you know. But I get an idea, even if it's a piece or a part or a lick, and I'll put my phone down, I'll play it on my guitar, you know, and I have like, in my files on my phone, there's like thousands of musical ideas that are anywhere from 1 minute to 4 minutes long, you know. And I start getting into that mode of creating, and then I'm always thinking, you know, I'll be walking down the block, you'll say hello to me, I won't even look, I won't even see you, you know, because it's usually the cranks are turning, you know. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll listen to everything I put down on my phone, you know, or on Pro Tools if I happen to be there, you know. Usually I won't sit down and start recording something unless I got something, you know, at least a verse, a chorus, and I won't start like putting a lot of work into it. I'll sit in my garage, I got Christmas lights in my garage, I go in there late at night, you know, ideas come to me, and I'll put them down on my phone, and then I'll start arranging them together. I'll listen back, you know, like the next day, 2 days, 3 days later. That's the one, you know, you don't know if something's good until 3 days after you did it, at least.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
It is, because, you know, you think something's great the moment you're creating it, and the next day you're like, what the hell was I thinking, you know?
Yeah, of course. Of course. And I've always felt like every album that you've put out, whether it was with Typo or, you know, Seventh Void and the Silvertomb, I feel like it is kind of like representative of like a time as well. Like I could tell from listening to Typo Negative's catalog what's off of Bloody Kisses, Origin of Feces,
Yeah.
October Rust, Dead Again, etc. And then, you know...
Oh, yeah, every album has a different character, totally.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that with every project you've been involved, maybe even every song you've written, it's always like an evolvement and a progression, or almost like a rebirth in a way, right?
Yeah, I think that it's sort of like I see like the music I write is sort of like a documentary of my life, you know, of what I'm going through, you know, what I'm feeling. Now I don't think I'm gonna run dry, because now I think as you get older, you just have more and more and more to complain about.
Of course.
So, you know, I got a lot to bitch about left.
Well, you're from New York, of course you do. I mean,
life is a pain in the ass, man.
is life killing you?
Well, yeah, it's killing us all.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. One thing, you know, I've the only time I've ever seen you live actually was with Silvertomb on the Life of Agony tour that you did.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah.
Oh, what, New York?
Yep, I was at Bowery
Oh, okay.
Electric.
That was a great show.
Yeah, that was a fun time. I was not feeling good at that show, but I made sure to stick around for the
We
whole
didn't know
thing.
each other yet.
Yep. No, I knew Joe and Henry, and we were hanging out outside a little bit. But, you know, watching you perform live, I've always thought is a different experience than simply listening to you. Is the method of playing live a different energy than when you're in songwriting mode, or is there maybe a similar method
It's
behind
totally different energy. You know, totally different. The only way it could be similar is if we were actually writing on the spot with a live drummer, you know. But yeah, live performance is a different animal, you know. I mean, that's really what I do this for, is live performance. To me, that immediate energy back and forth from the audience is what I live for, you know. It's intoxicating. You know, when it's going great. When it's going bad, it's the worst thing on the face of the earth. You know? So, yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different because it's so physical. You know, live is so physical. You know, it's sweat and flesh and, you know. And creating in the studio is more like, it's more cerebral, you know. And it's still from the heart, you know. I'm not saying it isn't. But it's not like you're moving your whole body, you know. And it's not like you're rocking your whole shit to it, you know. It's like you're sitting in a closet at 3 in the morning. Do this part again. Punch me in.
And I would also say live, you only have one chance to do everything. When you're songwriting,
that's what's great about it, yeah. Yeah.
You make sure that you put in your all every minute.
It's right here and now, man.
Yep.
No technology going to save your ass.
In
fact, it's going to take you down because everybody's going to be filming it. Everybody's going to be recording it. It's going to be all over the freaking Facebook and shit the next day, you know.
Yep. And don't even.
It used to be back in the day when we had a bad show. All right, everybody forgot about that one. Let's go on to the next show. It doesn't happen like that anymore. It's all over the
If you fuck up, the world's going to hear about it. Now, here comes the most difficult question in this whole interview because we talked a little bit about it. You know, being from a band, the art of long songs. How do you know when a song is done?
You just know. You just keep going. And Roger Waters said that. He said, well, you know, you start something and you keep going, and at one point you realize it's done. You just know.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, that's fair enough.
Yeah. It's like, you know, your relationship with your ex-girlfriend. You knew when it was over. Because she told you that.
You just had to go there. You just had to go there. That's probably the best answer I've ever gotten for this question.
Yeah. Yeah. Your ex-girlfriend will tell you when it's over.
Yeah. We got another one?
Yeah.
We got another fruit fly. Excuse the swatting. We're practicing hardcore dancing for the show at St. Vitus. Now, one thing I was always curious about, a typo question, is, you know, I've noticed a lot of people have associated Typo Negative with New York City hardcore for some reason, but...
Well, that's how we started out. We were a hardcore industrial dirge band.
I mean, I could imagine in the Carnivore days, but
no,
like...
Slow, Deep, and Hard is a hardcore industrial dirge album.
And that's really how you got associated with Agnostic Front and Sick of It All and Cro-Mags.
No, Peter worked with Agnostic Front. He wrote the lyrics for their first... I don't remember which record, but he used to write for them.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, yeah. He was always associated with them and Carnivore.
Yeah.
So when Carnivore broke up and we formed Typo...
And you were Repulsion at this point, right?
Well, first we were New Minority.
Okay.
And then we were Repulsion. And we actually we recorded the record. It was a demo, actually. It wasn't even supposed to be released as a record. And made some cassettes. Back then you had cassettes. But when we were first starting out, I mean, the whole idea was to do a hardcore, industrial, metal, dirge album, which is exactly what So Deep and Hard is. Which is probably, I'd still say, is our most original work.
Really?
Yeah.
There's
nothing like it. There still is nothing like it.
I don't think there's anything like October Rust either.
Yeah, well, I would argue that point, but that album, when it came out, there was nothing ever before it like it. And our audience, obviously, Peter had some success with Carnivore, you know, some underground success. So we had to play Carnivore songs. We were playing Carnivore songs.
You played Predator. I think Race War was a song that you also played.
Yeah, parts of it, I think.
Jesus Hitler.
Jesus Hitler we played, and so our first fan base it was all skinheads.
Fairly unique.
You know, coming to the shows. First show we ever played at Lemoore, I'd say there wasn't a lot of people there. Maybe 200 people there or something. And at one point in the set, like halfway through the set, a fight broke out. There was the Sunset Skins and somebody else. So they all ran out of the club and were beating each other up in the street, and the whole club emptied out. We had to finish the set. There's nobody here.
I'm surprised your set didn't get cut as a result. Well, that's funny. I feel like Typo Negative is the only band where all the members had long hair, and yet those guys would appreciate you.
Yeah. I think. Well, they all respected Carnivore, you know, and it took a while for the hardcore audience to really catch on to So Deep and Hard because of the slow parts. Mm-hmm. You know, our first tour was Exploited, Biohazard, and us, 1991.
Wow.
Yeah, we were opening for everyone. And we would do the hardcore shit, and the audience would go insane, and we hit the dirge parts, nobody knew what to do. They just keep beating each other up.
So I wonder how they took it when, you know, they heard a song like Love You to Death or something like that.
By that time, you know, what's funny about Typo, we had this amazing crossover ability, you know, because of the catalog, you know, and like, even into the October Rust days, the Skinheads would still show up to our shows, because we'd always play something from Slow Deep and Hard, you know.
Yeah.
We'd always put something like that in. So we always had this crossover ability. We could play with anybody.
Yeah. I thought Life Is Killing Me was a good, like, almost retrospective of just how much Typo Negative was able to explore. To have I Don't Want to Be Me, followed by Anesthesia, followed by If You Don't Know Me, I Might, however, that abbreviated song. But, like, I feel like that was a great retrospective, too. But it almost seems like Typo, like, I think the biggest similarity between Typo Negative and Silvertomb is just the willingness to experiment and really try new things.
Yeah. That's, you know, that's what we're going for, you know. I mean, just to explore and do a real exploration, not, you know, try to imitate anything, you know, like just take all the music that we've absorbed our whole lives. There's, all of that is in us. You know, and it's just a matter of time before all those pieces of music that are in us, that have been imbued in us since the time we started becoming musicians and listening to music, to come out in some form or another.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And I'd imagine, you know, I've heard a very famous saying when I was in art school that art comes out of art, or work comes out of work, rather. So, like, I'd imagine with every new element,
nothing comes from a vacuum.
Of course. So as you write more and more, you learn new things on how you can incorporate.
It is. It's an exploration. It's an exploration. If it's true, if what you're doing is true, you're not just trying to write singles to get famous, you know, bang chicks, have money, and have nice cars, which I don't have anything against, but I'm kind of over all that shit. You know? If you're doing a true search, then you're really, it's an exploration into music, you know. It's a journey.
Yeah, of course.
It's a journey.
Now, being that, you know, you are a musician who really cut your teeth in New York, you know, like, you know, Heavy New York started, you know, talking with a lot of the underground bands and everything like that, and I feel like you guys have a great, like, you know, starting in the New York City hardcore songs from the days of CBGBs and Lemores and all that, like, you know, was there, like, you mentioned you started in the New York City hardcore scene, but was that, like, the only scene you were able to, like, cut your teeth in? Was there other music that was happening at that time? Or was hardcore, like, predominantly what dominated New York?
No, it didn't dominate New York, and hardcore never dominated anywhere in a real sense. Hardcore is its own, you know, underground movement. Always has been. So, you know, hardcore has its limitations, but there was a lot. There was metal was going on. You know, Slayer was huge then. You know, Metallica, all that shit. And we were right at the transition stage into grunge. So, you know, we got together in '89. And I remember we put out So Deep and Hard in '91, same year Nevermind came out.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So my first trip to Europe, I think I was in Norway. We were in Norway, me and my friend Tommy, we were playing Norway. And Team Spirit came on, and fucking the whole thing came on, and like all these European girls started dancing to it and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? So we were right at that transition where all the hair metal bands got axed. You know, within 3 months of that. 6 months, Lemore was closed. You know, 3 months of that, hair metal bands were executed. But we survived. We weren't really a hair metal band.
Yeah. Well, you know what I find unique is, like, people, like, you hear music critics or whatever say that metal was dead in the 90s. I mean, think about what came out in the 90s.
It was metal. I'm friggin' Alice in Chains is metal. Listen to it now.
Absolutely. Alice in Chains, but think about what came out in the 90s. Cowboys from Hell, Far Beyond Driven, Vulgar Display Power, You, Slow Deep and Hard, October Rust, Bloody Kisses. You had Demanufacture, you had Arise, Chaos AD, Roots, like so many amazing 90s metal albums. Like, I wonder, like, sure, maybe it was...
I mean, you know, I think Bad Motorfinger kicks fucking ass. It is almost metal. I mean, there's a rock element to it, but a lot of that stuff was metal-based too.
Yeah.
You think the huge popular shit was. I mean, not Nirvana. Nirvana was more of a punk edge, you know.
Yeah.
True grunge.
But yeah, but that, I never understood, like, you know, like
listen, I have respected Nirvana and, like, the brilliance of what he did with his lyrics and all that stuff, but, like, I was never, like, over-the-top Nirvana fan, you know. I never liked Pearl Jam.
Okay.
It was too much cock rock for me. But,
Well, what I never understood is, and I felt the same way about hardcore. Like, okay, you take metal. Hardcore is a very aggressive, in-your-face form of music. I don't understand how hardcore kids couldn't appreciate, metal. And the same thing with grunge. I mean, the Nirvana's Bleach is fucking heavy as shit.
it's great, yeah.
So, like, I never understood, like, why, like, the nitpicking of, like, hardcore is just
I think it's nitpicking now. At the time, everybody was going to all the shows, Everybody was cross. It was all cross.
Yeah.
Except they had little knapsacks on, and the knapsacks got littler and littler until like 1997. People went to shows and their knapsacks were this big.
Well, now we have a fucking periodic table of metal subgenres nowadays.
Now, there's a billion metal bands. You get Spotify, all this stuff. Anybody can release their music at any time.
Yeah.
So now it's too much.
Yeah, of course. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, not that I imagine you're doubting it, but so many musicians who I personally look up to have taken you as inspiration. I mean, Trivium covered "I Don't Want to Be Me," Starset covered "I Love You to Death." And you really see, and I think Jamie Joss said it on the podcast you did with him too. There are kids who exist because of Typo Negative or something like that.
Yeah,
so
unfortunately.
Unfortunately. I mean, I was just curious, when you hear how people are taking inspirations from what you, Peter, and Johnny, and Josh did, as well as Sal when he was in the band, does that inspire you in a way? Did that maybe at all influence you as a musician nowadays?
I don't think it influences me, in what I'm doing, but what it does is, it really, it makes me feel, proud and kind of relieved that all that struggling we did all those years, and all that searching and all that work of touring and all that, that pain that we went through to make it happen. In the end, we made a mark and it paid off. I think that probably, I know my deepest goal in doing this, and I think even Peter's, was to leave a mark that lasts. To add something to music, art, to the society, that reverberates and lasts. And I think we did that. So
absolutely.
Maybe we didn't become billionaires, but we accomplished that.
Yeah. I sadly never got to see Typo Negative. I'm just curious to
You're too young.
I was when Slow Deep and Hard came out, I was -2 years old.
-2 years old. Right. Yeah, it was my first tour, 91.
Wow. I mean, I was always curious to what I've missed back in those days, But thank God for YouTube, I guess. Yeah. But before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for coming out to Lucky 13. Buddy. Is it just, we have the awesome show at St. Vitus, December 21st, which is
December 21st, right before Christmas. Come down, man.
It's a Saturday. You have no excuse. I don't want to hear that. I have work.
We're going to be giving away a green guitar. We're going to have a contest.
Oh, really?
I got to work out those details, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to promote? I know that there's some touring that you have, but can't really exactly talk about it.
Oh, I can't talk about touring. We are touring in March, but, we'll announce that when the time comes. I do have the Don Jamieson show coming up this Tuesday, live at 2:30 in the afternoon. And then we have, of course, the Metal Injection Party.
Yep.
15-year anniversary party at St. Vitus on Tuesday the 17th.
Wow.
Correct?
Yep, that is the 17th. I'll be there as well.
All right.
Yep, and we'll have a couple more drinks at that party.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kenny.
Thank you, buddy.
Everybody, Kenny of Typo Negative, Seventh Void, and Silvertomb. Pick up Edge of Existence if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time, and we'll see you December 21st at St. Vitus.